Hey, welcome to the Kinda Sleepy Podcast. I'm your host, Knowledge, and who do I have to my left?
Miss EP.
The voice of reason.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, okay. You're just going to add your own theme music now.
Of course.
Oh, it wouldn't be you. It wouldn't be you.
I mean, the theme music that plays in my head is fresher than that, but.
So, let me ask you a question. Like, when you, walking into work, do you hear theme music playing in your head?
Mm-hmm.
So, with this movie Shaft coming out tomorrow, by the time you guys hear this, it'll probably be today. So, you think you Shaft? Do you hear music kind of like that?
No, there's this new song called Serious. Fantasia's on it, the remix with her brother.
Okay. That's what you hear?
I've been hearing that lately.
You know what I hear?
I'm scared to ask.
La-dee-da-dee-da. Shla-o-me-na. Get me with that bush. What?
Man, go and tell the people what we talking about today. Go ahead.
Let's start off. So that song right there, that came from the Black Panther soundtrack. That's King's Dead with Kendrick Lamar and all them on there. And so, that's that movie by itself, Black Panther. I know y'all knew I was excited about that movie. We talked about it for a whole month, I think. But it was one of the blackest movies I've ever seen in my life, first of all. I mean, it was black excellence in every way. Well, another thing that we saw today, this week, that was super pro-black and super amazing, Mariah Parker of Athens, Georgia. Wow. She took her oath of office on the steps of Athens City Hall, and she won her election, her district election for the county commission. And she took her oath of office on the autobiography of Malcolm X with her fist raised. And she has the most amazingly beautiful, full, luscious, lovely afro. I gotta show her some love for that.
Definitely. That's
amazing. And her mother was holding the book for her, and the book is well worn, it's well read. Mm-hmm. It's about as, I mean, some people say raggedy, but it's about as well worn as your typical family Bible, So that's just amazing to me that, she would do this. I mean, that's very brave. I know that people are automatically, in Georgia, of course, all the message board heroes probably called her racist for doing that. So,
or an atheist.
Or an atheist, or all kinds of Muslim,
honestly,
communist.
Just real truth moment. I honestly didn't know you could choose
You can absolutely choose the book that you take the oath on.
Religious book of some sort. I didn't know.
You can choose, it's supposed to be what you swear and affirm to.
Okay.
So whatever you believe in most, whatever book I suppose you believe in most. I mean, and she didn't choose a bad book to.
No.
She didn't choose a bad book to swear and affirm her oath on. So I'm not mad at that at all. I'm sure. And I'm looking at Online Athens, which is the local newspaper, and they have this photo of her shortly after taking her oath of office, and there is the whitest white woman ever, who's also on the county commission with her, that just ran up and hugged her. I mean, this lady.
I thought you was about to say she was on the phone calling the police.
No, we've seen that though.
They swearing on books that's not the Bible. Call the police.
Have you seen the latest one?
No.
There's a lady, she called the police on this guy who was just doing his job, repaving a parking lot. I don't think he was a black guy. He looked like he may have been white or Hispanic or something like that. Mm-hmm. But he definitely was white presenting, as they say.
Right.
And she was like, "You're using dangerous chemicals, and we have children that come in here," and all kind of stuff. He was like, lady, sit your ass down. But
bye,
no, this woman, Melissa.
Bye, Becky. Can that be the new one? Can we use Bye, Becky?
No.
Why not? Mm-mm. Why we can't use Bye, Becky?
Because the thing is that we're giving them too much of our ethnic, or giving them too much of our cultural customs and courtesies. We have to come up with something else. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Have to make it more of a Caucasian type of thing.
That's what I'm thinking.
I'm gonna have to think on that one.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
But I need something.
Yeah.
Because we need something to dismiss them.
Yeah, like Toodles, Tabitha. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm thinking, I'm trying to come up with something like Toodles Tabitha. Instead of bye Felicia, bye Becky, Toodles Tabitha.
Okay.
How does that sound?
Not it's okay, but it's not giving me that oomph. It's not.
Yeah. Let's think on that for a little bit.
Okay,
let's let that linger.
Okay.
For a little bit. So yeah, it was Commissioner Melissa Link. That's this. I mean, and when I say like the whitest white woman ever, like she's pale white and she has red hair. So like she's definitely, you couldn't mistake her for any other ethnicity. But a couple of her supporters. I mean, she had supporters from all races, nationalities, backgrounds, and stuff like that. It was actually really dope to see this happen, and I'm just really happy for her. Like, I think more of us need to be involved in politics and doing what we need to do to get proper representation on these various seats.
And on your own terms.
Yeah, exactly.
On your own terms.
Speaking of which, there was something that happened today in Birmingham. Of course, I'm from Birmingham, and so of course this is always going to be something that comes up to mind. I'm always going to keep up with my hometown. A lady on the Jefferson County School Board. I can't think of her name right now. But she and this actually goes right into our next story. She basically was confronted today in Birmingham at a personnel meeting of the Jefferson County School Board because she's been accused of being racist. And one of the reasons that they say she's racist is because of some of the things that she posts and reposts to her Facebook page.
Let me guess, they're pro-black.
No. She's a white woman.
Oh, she's a white woman. Okay.
She's a white woman. And she posted this thing saying, how she supports Roseanne and all that stuff. I'm trying to find her name right now. I cannot think of her name. There it is. Hold on. I'm gonna find it because so anyway, just to give you the straight up truth. Her name is Donna Pike. That's her name, Donna Pike. And she posted a picture of Valerie Jarrett. And at the top of the picture, it's a meme. It says, "I am not black. I am a Muslim and I was born in Iran." As if that is something that precludes her from being a good person, a decent person, or a person worthy of respect. And I'm pretty sure that in the Jefferson County school system, I mean, I graduated from Jefferson County schools, there were black people, there were Muslims, and there were actually some students who were from Iran there. And so to have a school board member posting stuff like that, I mean, it's very problematic. It's a major issue. She has all kinds of disrespectful posts to President Obama on her page as well. And a local activist, Carlos Chavers, he actually went and called her out to her face, in the school board meeting. And I think that needs to happen more often. Like, I think we need to make racism ashamed again.
Of course. I don't know if this is from a movie or something, but when you said he called her out in the meeting, I immediately heard in my head, like, up in the motherfucker. What movie? Like, where did that come from? It wasn't Life.
You own one today.
He called her out.
Yeah.
Up in the motherfucker. Didn't care. Okay.
Yeah, and it wasn't like your typical school board meeting, in the big room, in the big conference room. They were sitting at a long table, like the temporary tables. Mm-hmm. The room was filled. I mean, there were people around the entire room. And he said that there are students, there were parents there with him who were ready to pull their students out of the school system if she wasn't addressed, if she wasn't reprimanded, if she didn't submit her resignation. And she just threw her hands up and was kind of indignant about the whole thing. And so I expect to see this kind of get bigger because this dude Carlos, he's the same dude that called the mayor a coon ass nigga.
I was wondering if that was the same guy.
It's the same dude.
Okay.
He the one that called the mayor a coon ass nigga. Now, here's my thing. Like, I'm not a Carlos fan. I'm not a Carlos detractor. I think he got it right on this one. I do think that we need to call racists out, especially when they're in positions of power and privilege. And we need to call it for what it is and ensure that we are properly represented on the school board, and what it is that, he's got a lot of fire in him. He's in his early 20s. So hopefully this works out for him. And, hopefully Donna Pike is no longer on the school board this time next month.
I mean, I said a while ago, we got to stop being nice niggas. I mean, I know Drake said nice for what, but I mean, it's put it in perspective. I agree with calling them out. Yeah, being bears.
Make racists afraid again.
Mm-hmm. When you were little, your mama would tell you, you going to cut up in public. I'm going to show you crazy. You going to act crazy. I'm going to show you crazy.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Same thing.
I agree. Mm-hmm. I completely agree. Speaking of people acting crazy, we still on this. Roseanne Barr is still up to her shenanigans.
She's still here.
She said she was going to get off Twitter and all that. And this, that, and the
Trump's still on it.
I know, right?
Okay.
But she's back to her regular conspiracy tweeting. And so she said, I'm making restitution for the pain I caused. And she retweeted somebody saying, you didn't cause any pain. Those people always hated you. Valerie Jarrett wants Israelis and Jews chased into the sea and she'll celebrate. Don't know where that came from. That's another one of those harebrained conspiracy theories. Somebody tweeted, do you not know what Valerie Jarrett has done? Her tweet is nothing in comparison, and her tweet wasn't bullying. And Roseanne Barr retweeted that and replied, they know not. And this is just like, we're now living in an age of anti-truth.
Yeah.
Like, we're living in an age where conspiracy theories and ridiculous ideas are getting traction and are getting more attention and credence and validity than the actual real life, honest to God truth. What the hell is going on?
I mean, we've always been attracted to the shock factor.
Well, yeah. Now, here's the thing.
Not
we've always been attracted. People in general, specific and especially Americans, we've always been attracted to those things that are salacious, those things that are provocative, things of that nature. But life in and of itself and the things that we experienced in America, especially with black people, like our lives in and of themselves were always salacious and provocative enough for us not to start going out here and making up stuff.
Right.
But it seems as though, in 2018, with the explosion of the internet and all this information at everybody's fingertips, everybody has a platform. Everybody has a platform, but nobody wants to read. And now that's a very dangerous combination, because now people are left to their own devices and they're literally eschewing years and generations of actually confirmed, scientific and logical and historical fact in favor of these harebrained ideas and conspiracy theories that really make absolutely no sense.
True.
I don't understand it.
Do you remember it was I don't know if I'm using the correct term, but she was an Asian girl and she became really popular on TV, like maybe early 2000s, maybe Bad Girls Club, like some reality TV shows. She was really tiny. Tila. Have you seen her social media page?
She thinks she is a white woman with blonde hair and blue eyes and is a Nazi.
Yes.
She is off the chain.
I was like, I just stumbled across, because I don't follow her, but I stumbled across her page one day because I didn't know who she was, and I saw a comment under someone else's post that was like the ugliest comment ever, and I was like, who is this? And I clicked and I was like, I remember her.
That chick last year during Trump's campaign, and they had a white nationalist rally, she showed up and there is a picture of her doing the Nazi hand salute.
I believe it.
Like, what?
But I wonder, how do you go from one extreme to the other? Like, that's...
We'll talk about that later when we talk about Kanye West.
Oh, okay. Well, good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of facts and truth and nobody wanting to listen to them, Malcolm Jenkins. I'm not watching the NFL this year. Didn't watch it last year. Like I said, the only football I will be watching, you can't actually use your hands, and there's a lot of running involved. That's the only football I'll be watching. Shout out to the World Cup, which starts this week, by the way. Malcolm Jenkins is now my new favorite football player since they've blackballed Kaepernick, even though they won't admit it, and it's going to come out in court that they actually colluded and did that. He held up signs during, the press time, during the interviews, when people started asking him about different things, because the Eagles decided that a lot of them weren't going to go to the White House, and Donald Trump, being the egomaniac he is, said, well, you wasn't invited no way. Yeah. Okay. Whatever, Donnie. So they asked, of course, they're going to ask Malcolm Jenkins, who's one of the top football players on that team. He's a safety. They're going to ask him how he feels about stuff. And he held up signs that said, you aren't listening. That was one of the signs. And that's the truth. They aren't listening. Like, they have completely co-opted what the original message of the kneeling was and tried to make it something that it wasn't.
So what they would prefer.
Yeah. And so one sign said, you aren't listening. Another sign says more than 60% of people in prison are people of color. That's black, brown, Asian. It says nearly 200,000 juveniles enter the adult criminal system each year, most for nonviolent crimes. Stop school pipeline to prison. In 2018, 439 people shot and killed by police thus far. African American males make up 8% of the U.S. population. 25% of those 439 people that were shot and killed by police were African American males. So this is the thing that, you know, certain white people tend not to understand. Black people in this country have never asked for special treatment.
Right.
We've asked for equal treatment. How is it that we can make up 8% of the population, but 25% of the people shot and killed?
It's crazy.
How is it that we can make up such a small portion of the population, but be 60% of the criminal of those incarcerated? When it's been proven that our white counterparts commit crimes equal to our rate. It's a matter of policing and where you focus. Crime in certain areas is less tolerable and less desirable than crime in other areas. I used to always say that if you do a drug raid at, you know, an inner city high school, you know, if you go do a locker sweep and, you know, get all the kids rounded up and check them for illegal drug paraphernalia, you may find a couple things. I'm nobody's in denial about that. Nobody at all is in denial about that. If you do the same thing at an affluent, suburban, predominantly white school, those numbers will come out probably significantly higher than that of their black counterparts. And the reason is because they feel safe and they have the privilege of feeling safe in that environment to even bring their stuff to school. I'll never forget when I was a high school teacher, this young man was walking out of my class to go to lunch. And he walked by me, and I'm telling you, he was higher than giraffe booty. He was higher than a kite on a warm spring day.
Right.
And he walked by me and said, hey. I'm like, yo, what's up with you? I'm thinking he was just being silly until he almost ran into the door.
Right.
And so I pulled him to the side, and I was like, yo, what's up? Are you all right? He was like, yeah, I'm good. I said, what did you take? Nothing. I said, don't lie to me. What did you take? The fact that this kid even showed up to school high like that said a lot to me. So, and now here's what was really crazy. So, you know, we had to take him to the assistant principal's office because I couldn't let this kid sit in my classroom high because if he had OD'd on something, like, what am I going to do? You know? So I went to his friends. I said, what did he take? Like, I got real firm with them. They know when I take that tone, you know, they need to give up the goods.
Right.
They were like, we don't know. He came to school like that. Like, he had some pills, and he took them himself. Like, we don't know. I'm like, all right. I know at least one of y'all probably either shared with him or gave it to him. Don't let me find out. And so they was like, okay. I mean, no, we don't know. I'm like, all right, you know, you let your boy hang out there to dry. You know, I talk to him real like that. I would be honest with them. Like, and so when I got back to the assistant principal's office, there was another teacher who was going off on this other little boy. Apparently, this kid had more pills that he had planned to take and had passed the pills off to his homeboy that walked by. And so now both of y'all catching a drug charge in school.
Wow.
And so they kept him in the assistant principal's office. The school resource officer came down there. And now this is the same school that they brought me to school in the back of a squad car in. That's a whole other story. But the school resource officer.
You have to.
I'll tell you that story
come back
off
to
the
that.
air.
Okay.
I'll tell you that story off the air. But the school resource officer came down there. I went down the hallway, told the teachers, everybody keep your students in the classroom, close the door. I put my kids in the room, and I closed the door. And when the boy walked by me, he was in handcuffs, being led out of the school in handcuffs. And he was so high, he didn't realize what was going on. He looked at me and said, "Bye, Mr. H." Like, that's all he could say.
And he planned on taking more?
He planned on taking more drugs. Now, when I worked at a predominantly black school, I never had an issue with drugs like that. Now, am I sure some of those kids probably smoke weed? Yeah,
right,
absolutely. Absolutely. Did I know who the kids were that sold drugs? Yes. I absolutely know who those kids were because I would pull them to the side and talk to them. You know, because you know the trap kids and the kids who are potential addicts. You know the difference. The thing is, when I worked at that predominantly white school, you know, these kids weren't potential addicts. A lot of them were addicts.
Big addicts.
Big addicts.
Right.
But the thing is, they push, you know, the police and the criminal justice system in our neighborhoods as if our illicit drug use or the things that we do are any different than what they do out there in the suburbs and in the country. It's not. That's why the opioid crisis is an opioid crisis. True. And the crack epidemic warranted a war on drugs. The opioid crisis warrants treatment. Opioid folks who OD get Narcan for free from their local sheriff's department, and they get sent to rehab. What did crackheads get? What did crackheads
get?
Jail. And ass whoopings.
Let me ask you this, though. Do you feel like, in all honesty, that for African Americans who are introduced to various drugs, you're introduced to it, you get hooked to it, there's a need for it, you don't have the means to obtain it, and it's almost like that's your pipeline to additional crime that follows based off of your new addiction to something that you've been introduced to, while someone of a different race can be introduced to drugs and they have the means to continue to purchase it, but they don't have some of the additional crime, not all. They don't have some of the additional crime that follows because
you touched on something. Crime and poverty go hand in hand. So even if it's not drugs and you're just poor,
right,
you're more likely and more susceptible to criminal activity
to obtain the things you need, right,
for survival than you are. Because I guarantee, I promise you, all the goons I know, all like the real thugs I know, all the real dope boys and trap boys I know, all the real ones, they don't want to be doing that.
Right.
They're looking for a way out. It's only kids that come from the suburbs and six-figure homes and parents who got
want to be a
part
of their life
that think it's cool to do that stuff. That shit ain't cool. They do it for the rep. They do it for the name. Nah, it's a lot of folks out there doing it to survive. You know? And so the thing is, like it says, it's a school to prison pipeline. I know that there was I don't know if it was factual or not, but I do recall like a statistic floating around a couple of years back saying that the state of Mississippi determined how many beds it was going to need for prison based on how many black males failed third grade reading or some of the tests. And I don't know I don't have anything to back that up or the validity of it, but given the history of America and how we've been over-policed and the police are an occupying force in our communities, coupled with all of the other things that seem to keep the cycle of abject poverty going, and couple that with the food deserts and all sorts of other things that go into keeping black people relegated to second-class citizenship in this country, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually a thing and that there were ways that they were doing that. I wouldn't be surprised.
I really think it is.
Yeah. Well, back to the original story. Malcolm Jenkins held up those signs because the media and people, you know, who were ingesting the media really aren't listening. They didn't care, you know. And it's always funny to me when people are like, Colin Kaepernick's kneeling was so disrespectful to the flag. You don't kneel when the national anthem playing. I'm like, so we just gonna forget that a special forces soldier asked him to kneel instead of sit out of respect?
Right.
We just forgot that, huh? Just gonna blow right by that.
Of course.
Because as Malcolm Jenkins reminded y'all, you aren't listening.
I think the signs was like a amazing like gesture, because I feel like a lot of times people aren't going to relate to what you're saying because they hear it coming out of your mouth. They hear your face as the voice of it. They hear your tone. There's so many other things.
It's the messenger, not the message.
They're so focused on you versus the message that if you put it in writing and you let people read it and they hear it in their own voice and their own tone.
I'm quick to tell people what they're not listening to and what they don't care about.
True.
I'm very quick to do that because it's obvious a lot of times. It's very obvious. Like, I find it funny when people are like, you know, hey, we need to, you know, as we've talked about on this show, I'm a Second Amendment supporter. I love firearms, you know, of the building and customization of firearms and the competitive nature of shooting. But am I willing to subject myself to a little bit more stringent background check and regulation to ensure that, you know, firearms don't get in the hands of kids? Sure. Do I think criminals will still find a way around these gun laws? Absolutely. I know they will. That's their job. But the thing is, if I'm willing to make a small sacrifice, you know, what I consider a small sacrifice to save another child, then fine. I'm willing to do that. But the thing is, whenever we talk about gun laws and whenever we talk about, you know, stopping mass shootings, the first thing that typically a white person brings up is, well, what about Chicago? I'm like, the first thing that comes back out of my mouth is, you don't really give a shit about Chicago. Please stop using Chicago as your blanket statement. You don't give a damn about Chicago. In fact, crime in Chicago has been decreasing, has been on a decline for a number of years now. Number one, you don't give a shit about Chicago. And if you did, you would have actually found those Stop the Violence organizations and those people who are in the community actually doing the work every single day to stop some of the gang violence. You don't give a shit about Chicago.
Right.
Stop pretending to care about Chicago when it's convenient. I say the same thing about people using veterans as a political football. For example, when people were like, kneeling for the flag is disrespectful to veterans, I said, no, the fucking VA is disrespectful to veterans. The entire mental health system within the military and the VA is disrespectful to fucking veterans. You want to know what's really disrespectful to fucking veterans? These women in uniform who are often subjected to sexual assault and rape, and whose lives are sometimes ruined by the fact that they are treated as though they're not the victim but the perpetrator. Oh, it's a big deal. It's a major thing.
Very
like that's the world's. It's kind of a well-kept secret. I mean, a couple of people have come out and talked about the sexual assault, the rampant sexual assault in the military, but that shit happens a lot. I
don't think it's a secret at all. I think we turn a blind eye to it because it's the military.
Right. And the thing is, they like that. So you want to talk about being disrespectful to veterans and being disrespectful to the troops. Let's talk about that shit. Let's talk about sending us to wars. Let's talk about sending our troops into wars that we don't need to be in to begin with. Let's talk about the Cheeto in chief out here flexing on our allies like we don't need them, like they don't do any of the heavy lifting. I've been to Afghanistan. I've been at NATO headquarters. I see how much these other countries are invested in an effort that we literally spearheaded. You mean to tell me we just gonna shit on them now? You want to talk about being disrespectful to veterans, you might want to unpack a whole lot of shit, and you might want to start with the VA. Kneeling is the least of our concerns if we actually give a shit about veterans. Let's talk about the 22 veterans that commit suicide every day. Let's talk about the number of homeless veterans that we got in this country. Let's talk about all that shit. Let's talk about the inadequate measures they have for helping veterans reintegrate into society. You have trained some of these men quite literally to engage with the enemy in close quarters and kill them. And they see things that human beings, our minds typically aren't capable of handling, especially coming from a privileged, entitled country such as America. Right. And you may say that some of these kids are poor, but poor in America is not like poor in Iraq. Poor in America is not like poor in Afghanistan. Poor in America is not like poor even in Puerto Rico, which is an American territory. And so your privilege of not seeing this kind of violence on a regular basis and growing up with it is something that is very hard for you to transition back into what we consider normal society and think is okay. So don't tell me what's disrespectful to veterans, because that Kneeling is not disrespectful to veterans. The way you treat veterans in this country is disrespectful to veterans.
I totally agree. But as with most arguments, nobody's talking about it to that level.
Nobody.
We just want to use this one little piece. That's
Right.
the same thing people did. I mean, when
You
it
wanna
came
know
to
why?
religion in the
You wanna know-
Bible,
you
we
wanna
want
know
to pick
why?
out the pieces that apply to the
wanna know
argument
why?
we're making, right?
Because you don't really give a shit.
Exactly.
You don't care. So stop pretending. Like that bothers me to no end. Let's move on to the next story. While we're on this, Colin Kaepernick's lawyers are seeking to subpoena Donald Trump and Mike Pence. That's a report that came out last week. I hope this really does happen. Of course,
I hope it blow the top off.
And the thing is, you know good and well that Pence and Trump aren't gonna respond, and they're not gonna, they're gonna use their executive privilege to not have to answer any questions. But
it still may shine a light on some things that
it definitely
aren't
will.
known at this point.
I think at this point, just with the little bit of information we know, Kaepernick's gonna win his suit.
Mm-hmm.
And so the NFL is going to have to pay him. So all that money he sent out to those different folks, that whole $1 million, I think he'll get that back times 10.
And some, right.
And I think he'll probably reinvest a lot of that into these continue investing money into communities. And I think that's amazing.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, that's dope to me. We talked earlier about how Trump uninvited the Eagles. And so instead of having them there, he had what he called a celebration of America. And I believe the Marine Corps chorus was singing the national anthem. And two men who were in the audience for this celebration of America decided to take a knee during the ceremony while they were singing the national anthem. And I was like, that is the most amazingly dope thing I've ever seen in my life. So whoever these two men are, it's two white guys. I'm not real big on handing out invitations to the cookout. But
they can get a plate. They can get a to-go plate. They can get a to-go plate.
I will personally bring you a to-go plate with some of mud dip potato salad.
Can they get the crispy fish, fried hard? Can they get the fried hard fish, or they just got to get...
You know what?
Because the fried hard
they
fish
can't
is
get
a
the
specialty.
fried hard fish.
Okay.
Robert DeNiro can get the fried hard fish.
He can get the fried hard fish, okay?
Robert De
He can
Niro
get
gets
the
the fried
first
hard
piece of
fish.
fish out of the grease.
Nah, I ain't going that far.
Why not?
I ain't going that far.
Man, he in there. Okay, he can get the first piece of fish.
He can't get the first piece of fish.
Yes, he can.
He can get a piece of the sweet potato pie, but he ain't getting the first piece of fish.
He can't
That
get
goes to the man in the house.
the big piece of chicken.
That goes to the man in the house. And if we're talking about the overall cookout, I would have to say the man in the house. Let's see, Dick Gregory gone.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give three people the man in the house right now.
I'm nervous. I'm super nervous to hear this.
Barack Obama, which is a safe one.
Okay, that's
for a lot of people.
It's safe.
It's safe for a lot of people. Louis Farrakhan.
Okay.
The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I gotta give him a piece of fish. The first piece of fish. Third, you wanna know who's third? Guess. Take a guess.
I have
Beyonce. Gotta give Beyonce that piece of fish. King B
my
is the man in the
whole
house.
face.
Yeah. No, I'm kidding. But no, I really, but to be perfectly honest, I would like to give David Banner.
No shade towards Beyonce, though. No shade. No
I
shade.
do not want smoke with the Beehive. But no, I would like to give David Banner.
I was thinking David Banner. I was like, you better not say T.I.
No, I'm not giving T.I.
I mean, he gets a good piece of fish.
He gets a plate. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? He get the fried hard fish.
He get his plate made for him.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah.
David
Banner.
Banner.
Okay.
I'm very happy with David Banner. I'm very proud of David Banner. I'm sure there's
He's
a
come
lot
a long
of,
way.
Yeah. But you know what though? It was always in him.
Yeah, it was. No, he was doing what he had to do.
Southern, having been SGA president at Southern, you knew it was always in him. And so, I'm just happy, he did what he did to get on. But even in his early days, Cadillacs on 22s.
Right.
Remember the video for that?
Yep.
He always had a bit of consciousness there.
Right. He always had a message, not in every song.
Making girls get down on the floor. Hey.
Popping on the handstand.
Hey. Right, girl, I'm trying to make you pussy wet. I'm trying to. When he did that whisper,
Yeah, that was.
come, girl, I'm trying to make your pussy wet. Work that. Let me see your drip sweat.
You done? I think you're having too much fun.
I really am. I'm sorry. I'm
come
having
on
way
back.
too much
Come
fun.
on back.
Let me come on back. So I think David Banner is a national treasure, along with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Okay.
I know people often give Minister Farrakhan grief, saying that he says anti-Semitic things and stuff like that. I'm not willing to throw. It's a lot of folks I'm really willing to throw away for a moment of indiscretion. But Minister Farrakhan's body of work and even working with people of Jewish descent, despite some of his views, kind of speaks for itself. I'm not here to defend Minister Farrakhan. I have a lot of love for him, though.
I do.
I
don't necessarily agree with everything.
he said.
Right.
But
I admire
his discipline.
Right.
His discipline and dedication. I mean, you can't beat that. And then you got and the reason I chose Barack Obama is simply because, I mean, to have to deal with everything he's had to deal with. I didn't agree with everything he did. People actually thought I hated Barack Obama. And I was like, no, I don't hate President Obama. It's just that I think that we should hold him accountable. I don't think we'll ever be able to have an honest conversation about President Obama's legacy and time in office. I don't think we'll ever be able to have that honest conversation. No. But I do appreciate what he did and what and the accomplishments that he made. So that's why
that was a lot to go through.
Yeah, a whole lot. I think those three are national treasures. But the next person we're going to talk about, I also think is a national treasure who needs to be protected at all costs. Issa Rae.
Yes, ma'am.
I love me some Issa Rae. I absolutely love Issa Rae. I think she's dope. So Issa Rae, she hosted the CFDA Awards. I'm not exactly sure what CFDA stands for. I think it's like Council of Fashion Design Artists or something like that, but whatever. It's something with fashion designers.
Yeah, and artists.
Yeah. And so she said, she opened up in her opening monologue, she said, I'm about as fashionable as Kanye is black. Only when it's convenient. And then she said, that joke was my choice, just like slavery. Now, what made it really interesting is that Kanye's wife, Kim Kardashian, was sitting in the audience. I would have loved to see her face.
They don't have pictures?
They didn't post them, so.
I'm surprised the internet let that one slip.
They didn't. You know, some of the other podcasts I listened to definitely mentioned it. A lot. I know Twitter kind of exploded a little bit. You know, there was a chorus of yes.
No, I mean, I'm surprised they missed like the image of her face, of Kim's face in that moment.
Like, had it been done at the Grammys or the Emmys or the Billboard Awards or the BET Awards, then yeah. Like, but this is the CFDAs, you know. Yeah.
True. I mean, I admire the fact that she actually speaks her truth, but it comes across in the form of a joke.
Like when she said, "I'm rooting for everybody black." I thought that was so dope.
She speaks her truth.
And there's a company out there that makes a patch that says, and there's another company that makes a pen. I think Radical Dreams Pens makes a pen that says "rooting for everybody black." I really want one. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get me another denim jacket and put it on there.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm rooting for everybody black.
Of course, all times.
At all times. To keep on, not to beat up on Kanye West, but his album dropped. I thought it was mediocre. For a Kanye effort, I thought it was mediocre. I did listen to it on the through my ubiquitous clandestine sources, who provided me with the appropriate direction in how to listen to it, and I give Kanye a dime. And he said that mental illness caused him to say slavery was a choice for blacks. Yeah. In his album, he also said that being bipolar wasn't an illness, but it was his superpower. So, yeah. Let's
not to completely unpack there at all. But real quick, do you think that the inability to relate to another human being, even though you don't understand what they've had to go through and endure, your inability to completely just relate in any shape, form, or fashion, to have sympathy, empathy, or anything of the sort towards this other human being, do you not think that's just a pinch some form of mental. I'm not talking about Kanye.
Yes.
I'm saying like just
And
for people
it's
who are
called
racist.
sociopathy, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before anybody jumps down my throat about this, I am not a mental health professional. I would never claim to be one. In fact, I need a mental health professional most of the time. So, like I would never claim to be able to stand in those shoes. But I think that is the mark of a sociopath. If I'm not, that's one of the marks of a sociopath: the inability to empathize or sympathize with others' plight, situations, or emotions. Yeah. So. Yeah.
So mental ill.
I would say that sociopathy is a mental illness.
No, I'm saying so he's really saying that his mental illness is the reason why
I didn't put
he made the statement.
I thought it was an excuse. I wanted to shut the hell up personally.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
I don't think it'll ever
anytime
happen.
soon.
Yeah. To stay on the Kanye West and Kim Kardashian train, apparently Trump told Kim Kardashian that her and Kanye are helping him with black voters.
Where? Houseway.
You know what, though? I thought about it. And I thought long and hard about this. And it disturbs me. I looked back at the numbers, and it disturbs me that 13% of black males voted for Donald Trump. And I even had some weirdo under one of my Facebook statuses basically caping for Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Saying that Trump has a conqueror mentality and he only wants to talk to people who can assist him from a certain realm. Sir, you need to stop assisting yourself to your mama's orange juice and the money in her purse and move out of her basement. Shut your ass up. I'm so tired of you Negroes.
I feel like that percentage represented a good percentage of men, African American men, that have mental illness.
You know what? I don't.
Really?
I don't.
I do.
Here's my thought process. I think that there are some black men out there. I think there's a larger number than we're willing to admit. There are two types of black men out there, I think, that made this up. The first type of black man is the one who is completely and totally beholden to the Republican Party and its ideals because they're one of those folks who don't see color and don't believe that racism exists anymore, and anybody who calls out racism in any way, shape, form, or fashion is subscribing to some sort of victim mentality. And I've met these type of what I call vacuum conservatives because they look at everything in a vacuum. They don't consider any sort of facts or tangible evidence of anything outside of what their experiences are. They have embraced the false premise that white privilege does not exist and try to emulate such thought processes without understanding where they are in society. So I think part of it was that. The other black men that I believe voted for them, believe it or not, I think some of them are actually pro-black, and they are the black men who see themselves in Donald Trump. There are some black men out here who don't want equality. They don't want justice. Essentially, what they want is superiority. They want privilege, and you most often heard it. You most often heard it in the arguments about Bill Cosby. So let me break that down right quick. So when Bill Cosby, with all the evidence and everything and all the information on that trial that was out there, people was like, well, if you gonna get Bill Cosby, y'all need to get Harvey Weinstein and all these other folks. Okay, that's fair. But why are you saying that? Are you saying that in the interest of justice, or are you saying that because you believe a rich black man should be able to get away with the same things as a rich white man?
That part.
That's what it is. So you don't want justice. You're not interested in protecting women, whether they be white women, black women, or anybody else. That makes me believe that if you had $1 million in the bank and you were willing to rape somebody, or you had a proclivity towards sexual assault, you would think that you should get off just like some other man should. Now, if we're going to destroy those systems, then we have to we can destroy privilege and still hold ourselves accountable for the heinous things that we do.
I agree.
And the thing is, though, some of these guys don't want to do that. They don't want to be held accountable, just like Donald Trump doesn't want to be held accountable for anything he does or says. And so they saw themselves in Donald Trump and said, you know what, I'm going to vote for this man because I see myself there.
I think
and that's who I want to be.
Mental illness.
I think that's a clear and present choice. I can't say whether it's mental illness or not. You know, it's just, but I mean, I would not, I think at some point all of us have been mentally ill.
Yeah.
You know, I know I can admit that I have been at multiple times in my life. At sometimes for years at a time. I'll admit that. The thing is, I think though that there are some people whose worldview is just shaped from a way that is not beholden to facts. Like when B.O.B. said, "I don't believe slavery happened because have you ever seen a slave ship?" And the whole internet was like, "Well, here are these photos of slave ships." That's another story. Because the flat earther, and another thing is the flat earthers, like,
they put all the slave ships in the same place where they put Noah's Ark.
So continuing on. The reason that weirdo jumped into my Facebook comments is because of President Trump granting clemency to Alice Johnson. Now, clemency doesn't mean that the charge disappears. She is still a convicted felon. She still has a drug conviction on her record. Okay? And so clemency just means basically, okay, you've served enough time, you can go home. Well, clemency is the method of relief that she sought. And he granted her, what's it called? He commuted her sentence.
Okay.
So she was granted clemency by commutation. Both a pardon as well as a commuted sentence are forms of clemency. Just to get everybody clear on what that is. Okay. So Kim Kardashian went to the White House, met with Donald Trump regarding Alice Johnson. And the thing is, people kept saying she was a first-time nonviolent offender. She was sentenced to life without parole. For her role in a very, very, very large drug conspiracy. When I say large, I don't mean, grams, dimes, and nicks. Nah, I mean kilos. Lots of kilos. Lots and lots of kilos of dope. In the thousands of kilos of dope. And so the status that somebody decided to jump in and I guess be weird about was this status. I'm gonna actually read the status here on the show. I said, so Donald Trump gave clemency to Alice Johnson, and I have conflicted feelings about it, which I still do. I said, do I think she deserved life in prison for her crimes? Absolutely not. Do I think her rehabilitation and life change is a good thing? Yes. That's more of a testament to her capacity for change and desire to do better than our criminal justice system, though. Where I'm conflicted is that this woman, based on the trial and court records, I read the court records. I actually went and found her case, and I read what she was accused of. I read the affidavit that had her charges and everything on there. I read, everything. I read her full case. And it said that this woman was directly responsible for transporting and distributing 27 kilos of cocaine. Okay. She was indirectly responsible for receiving and distributing over 150 kilos of cocaine in one instance.
Man.
Now, this is just from what I read. The judge said that her and her crew could have been responsible for 2,000 to 3,000 kilos of cocaine being distributed between Texas and Tennessee. That being said, I'm not really big on drug laws. However, I do believe they serve a purpose. Don't let the words nonviolent and elderly make you miss what actually happened here. There's a reason she was denied clemency 3 times by the Obama administration. This was self-serving for Trump and smacks of nepotism. I'm absolutely glad that Mrs. Alice Marie Johnson is free. I'm not glad that it seems as though clemency will be granted based on whether or not you have a celebrity or power broker to advocate for you and not the merits of your case. Because that's what happened here. Now, what President Obama was doing during his time was basically saying that if we adjust these sentencing guidelines, then there are certain people who were nonviolent drug offenders who will get out based on the new sentencing guidelines, and if we retroactively enforce them. I think that was a lot of what he was advocating for, having been an attorney, having been a constitutional law attorney at one point. I think that his clemency program, specifically with regards to a lot of these, football numbers for nonviolent drug offenses, was very, very narrow and did not really address the issues. That was one of my criticisms of President Obama, specifically from that standpoint. Now, let's look at it like this. Had President Obama gave clemency by way of commutation or pardon to a black person accused of distributing 2,000 to 3,000 kilos over a certain number of years of cocaine in the midst of an opioid crisis, quote unquote opioid crisis, Republicans would have moved for impeachment immediately.
Agreed. I think we can put that under the category of fact.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. And so,
but this is the thing. How many more people are in jail that have similar cases?
Tons of them. And so while we're celebrating and tap dancing and running up and down the aisles saying that this is so great and so amazing, you got cousins, brothers, and all kinds of other people still in jail behind nonviolent drug offenses. This doesn't level the playing field at all.
No, it's meant to pacify us.
It's just.
I mean, I'm glad she's out.
She's home.
I'm glad she's home. However, there's a bigger picture.
I don't think she deserved to be in jail for life. But 2 to 3 keys, considering the numbers that other folks serving or selling way less weight than that have gotten. I mean, just the 27 kilos that by virtue of the evidence and court documents that she actually personally handed off and gave out to people from her car, from her hand, from a shopping bag, the 27 keys that she just handed out, there are people who have done just as much time and are still in jail for those 27 keys and less.
I mean, I know people back home, man. It's not life, but I mean, young guys that get between 20, 40 years.
20, 40 years at 19, 20, 21 years old.
Little play bags of weed in the pocket, man. Like,
people getting. Let's not even. Because we're going to go down a rabbit hole. We almost at an hour as it is. So, on a lighter note, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the Liar-in-Chief's press secretary.
Can you say her name again, please?
Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Go ahead.
I mean, if that's not a Caucasian name, woo.
Ooh, it's like, I know your neck red. I'm sorry. It just sounds like your neck red.
Like if she showed up in a pair of overalls and a blouse,
wouldn't even ask her. She fine.
Like,
go ahead.
Them her dress overalls.
Mm-hmm.
I'm serious. Like if she got behind the podium in some dress overalls,
I wouldn't care.
I'd be like, that sounds about right. That sounds exactly just about right.
Just say it one more time, okay?
Sarah
Huckabee. Say it like the right way.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
As if you were like announcing her name.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I'm telling you, like.
Thank you for participating in my mess for
I know,
the night.
right?
I appreciate it.
So Sarah Huckabee Sanders,
see,
she had the unmitigated gall, the audacity to stand up and say, "I am an honest person."
You can't get it out.
She literally said this. Like, so she was pressed. Okay, so back in August, Donald Trump, it came out that Donald Trump actually drafted a misleading statement to federal investigators trying to protect his son, Donald Trump Jr.
Really?
Regarding his meeting with a Russian lawyer at Trump Tower. Donald Trump Jr.'s meeting with a Russian lawyer at Trump Tower. And so the press secretary said back in August that Donald Trump had nothing to do with that statement. Well, it turns out that wasn't true. And when she got pressed about it at a White House press briefing, she said she wasn't going to correct it. And then she said, I'm an honest person. But you just got caught in a lie. And you knew it was a lie undoubtedly at the time that you said it. But you were an honest person.
Did her neck turn colors? Because, that's the telltale sign.
It looked a little red. Like her left nose was kind of swollen. I thought she had got pregnant by the truth. Got pregnant with the truth. Had a baby of lies. Just disrespectful. You're just disrespectful, man. Like she really think we stupid. Like she really thinks we're stupid. And I'm just
You're supposed to believe her.
Man, fuck out of here.
Her name is Sarah. Now, if her name was Sarah,
man,
there's another story.
Nope. Her name would have to be Miss Minnie, and she would have to be cleaning houses for me to have, for me to literally believe her. So a UPS employee, Gwendolyn Carter, spelled Gwendolyn like normal Gwendolyn, but Carter is Carder. She was a human resources supervisor at UPS. And she got fired. Guess why she got fired?
Tell the people why she got fired.
For being racist on Facebook. I am always here for these public draggings of racists. She said, so they talk about police. There was an article about police brutality, and I think there was somebody standing up for police against police brutality or something like that. No. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me not lie. Like Sarah Huckabee Sanders. So there was a police car that hit this black man while they were in pursuit of him. That's definitely police brutality. You definitely don't hit somebody with a car. So she insinuated that he deserved it. She said, thugs deserve it. If a family member, so be it. However, I do not have any thugs in my family that I'm aware of. Seems to be people of color who are the problem.
Get her out of here.
You a whole human resources supervisor. And you thought this was a good idea. Like, here's the thing about racism.
That was her it's freedom of speech.
But not freedom from consequences. Now, here's what's funny. So I went and trolled her LinkedIn.
No, you didn't.
I did. And it showed where she was working at UPS for 21 years. And then all of a sudden it says retired. June 2018.
She retired, all right.
Oh, yeah, you got your retirement, all right. Yeah, you got the hell up out of there. Boy. Yeah. So... but the thing is, I think these racists don't understand that once you start making statements like this, there are enough technologically savvy people of color and quote-unquote allies who will find out who you are, where you live, and where you work.
Well, that's the thing about it. I feel like people who are really... I feel like all racist people are uneducated. But...
I don't.
I personally do. I feel like there's a high level of ignorance that is involved in you being racist.
Now, I'm glad you said that. There's a guy who works in the Trump administration who is obviously a racist, and he went to Duke University.
Not saying
which is one of the top universities in the country.
Not saying that you're not intelligent from book smarts.
But you said uneducated.
I changed it to ignorant.
Okay. Let's go there.
Okay. So I changed it to ignorant. I thought long and hard about that one day. I was like, who was the first person that said, you know what? I'm poor. I don't have a pot to piss in. I'm trying to run from smallpox and shit. And I'm going to go over here and fuck with some other poor people who live in their life. Because I feel like they're less than me. I'm superior. They're inferior just because their skin color is different. And I don't understand their language and their beliefs.
Here's my thing. You know, there are a number of educated racists who have chosen their own truth. There are a number of educated people who have chosen their own truth, which tends to be devoid. And both of these choices oftentimes are devoid of facts and context. Nothing more, nothing less. And what I like to think that racists are and bigots and prejudiced folks are. Racists are the people who are at the top that have power. Okay. Bigots are the people who have no power, who just say things out their mouth. The thing is, that woman, Gwendolyn Carter, could have been considered a racist because there's no telling how many black folks that she didn't hire or took unfavorable personnel action against because of the color of the
position she was in.
Because of the position she was in. But your regular, average, everyday bigot who just sits on Facebook and spews all kinds of nonsense, I mean, they can't really affect my ability to live, exist, and thrive and work in this country. And so I think that they are just people who are secretly scared. And I asked this question last week. I said, black people in this country have only asked for equal treatment and justice. We haven't asked for anything special. We just ask that you treat us fairly. Treat us fairly and leave us alone. That's it. People go out of their way to antagonize, gaslight, and bother us. Leave us alone. That's all we want, is to be left alone and be treated equally. Why is that so hard? Do you hate us that much that you can't not do that? So, speaking of people needing to leave stuff alone, you niggas got to stop going to Waffle House. I made it a whole hour.
You know what?
I made it a whole hour. And this is the first time I've said the N-word in this show. Be proud of me.
I am proud.
But they did. I had to say
it. I give you a pass. No, I give you a pass on this one.
Have you seen this video?
Yes, I saw the video.
So we told y'all.
Quit going places.
Stop going to Waffle House
where your money is appreciated.
You watch the lady in Montgomery get slammed and have her top pulled down, exposing her bare breasts to the world. You watch the little boy, little 19, 20-year-old boy, young man, excuse me, let me not say boy, the 19, 20-year-old young man, after taking his younger sister to the prom, get choked by a police officer in here in North Carolina. And now you're at Fort Walton Beach in Florida, because Florida is where all the crazy people are. And we're watching people say, hey, can you explain to me why my bill is so high? Are you charging me for stuff that I didn't order or didn't get? And these folks called the police on them. And the police said, no, you need to pay the bill even if you did get charged for stuff that you didn't pay for. Essentially, that's what they're saying.
Right.
They're telling these folks, you need to pay your bill and leave. Pay your bill and leave. Why am I paying for something that I don't understand and possibly am being charged for something that I didn't get? Like, if you charge me for 2 All-Star or Grand Slam breakfasts or whatever they may be, the Grand Slam is at Denny's, isn't it? I don't know. Either way.
It's All-Star.
It's the All-Star breakfast. The All-Star breakfast at Waffle House. If you charge me for 2 All-Stars and I only ordered 1, why don't you just say that instead of calling the police? Now, on the video, the young lady goes in and says, now, can you explain, they've arrested my boyfriend. Now, can you explain the bill to me so that I can pay you?
Right.
Because I can't pay you what I owe you if you don't tell me why I owe you this amount of money, which I don't think is equal to what we ordered. The lady then in Waffle House says, I can't talk to you until I speak to the police officer. She says, okay. The lady goes back outside, talks to the police officer, and
attempts to talk to the police officer
and says, the lady inside just said that she can't talk to me about the bill until she talks to you. This hyper-aggressive police officer, who had already pulled out a taser on her boyfriend for no reason, as he was standing there unarmed, without a shirt on, with his arms in the air, had his hands in the air, letting him know he wasn't being a threat. Just saying, I want to talk to this lady about my bill. I don't have to calm down right now, especially when she called the police on me for just asking for customer service.
We've talked about it before. Calling the police on someone at this point, that's a threat.
I firmly believe that if you call and actually at work, we had this unconscious bias class, and they gave us these pictures of people, and one of them was an older white woman. And they said you need to you have to give them a number rating from 1 to 5 based on your level of warmth towards them and their competence. What you think their competence level. You don't know anything about them just based on how they look, what their warmth and competence is. Now me, I'm pretty much the same with everybody. So for the most part, I gave everybody a 3. And I think everybody, and until you prove yourself to be otherwise, I kind of keep everybody at a certain level of competence. That way I'm never disappointed.
Right.
I'm always overjoyed when you become more competent. So you prove yourself to be more competent than I think you are. Like, that's literally how I see people. And so, but with this particular woman, I rated her lower on my warmth level. And people were like, well, why did you rate her lower? I said, this woman looks like the same woman that called the police on me when I was in undergrad. That worked at Patey.
Okay. Looks
just like that woman that worked there. And I was like, I don't feel warm towards her. That's just the reality of it. Now, what I won't say is that I feel warm. I don't feel warm towards all Waffle House workers. However, what I will say is that I am uncomfortable going in Waffle House when they have proven time and again that they don't want black people in their establishments.
I mean, the one that's down the street here, I haven't been in quite some time. I've really wanted to go and get a hash brown and a pecan waffle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've missed that a lot. They're not that bad though. They're pretty friendly. I mean, I think some.
I'm not going to any of them.
Yeah. You did forget about the one that was in Alabama also, where they locked the doors and it was just a restaurant full of white people, and they wouldn't let the black people in.
Sure did. We did talk about that, didn't we?
Yes.
I'm not surprised, man. Waffle House clearly hates colored folks, even though they got a Waffle House.
No. Wait.
Every 2 miles in Atlanta.
You know what? Okay, I'm gonna cross the line just for a second. It's not Waffle House. I can't put that on Waffle House. Everybody knows Waffle House has low standards when it comes to food, preparation, grades, all that good stuff. Even the employees. It's the employees that are hired that work at Waffle House. You know you're not getting great customer service. You know the type of people majority of the time that are employees at Waffle House. You got a lot of people that work at Waffle House that look like they smoke meth on their break.
Very true.
Okay, so those same people are the people that get a little overwhelmed when you have black people in there that are a little intimidating.
So you
in any shape, form, or fashion.
So I know that Waffle House is one of the employers that hires folks with felonies. I know they are, which I actually think is a good thing.
It is.
I think that's an excellent thing for them to do. I think more employers should hire folks who have proven that they want to be, better reintegrated into society and have served their debt to society, and that are making positive steps towards being better people, despite, maybe a poor choice they made in the past. I think that more employers should do that. However, you're right regarding some of the employees that I've seen do look like they smoke meth in the bathroom.
Not even in the bathroom, just behind that door. The door that swings is like a silver, like faux stainless steel door with a little window in the cutout.
So what I'm saying is I would like Waffle House to do a drug test for everything but marijuana.
Really?
Yeah, because I feel like if more Waffle House employees smoke weed, they'd be more relaxed and they won't be able to, get all amped up and call the police.
I could see Waffle House being the pilot restaurant to serve breakfast food that has marijuana in it.
It's gonna be IHOB, International House of Blunts. They changed their name, right? So
and they put the smiley face underneath.
They changed the P to a B, and Wendy's had all the shade for them. Yo, let's get out of here, man. We done. You got any parting words for the people, man?
Stay positive at all costs.
At all costs?
At all costs, stay positive. Yes.
At all costs.
At all costs, no matter what it costs you. Some stuff you gotta cut. You gotta let go. You gotta
Cut it.
All costs, positive.
Stay positive at all costs.
Protect your peace.
Protect your peace. What I gotta say to the people as a parting shot is, hey man, stop eating that Waffle House, bro. Bottom line, stop eating that Waffle House. Unless
what?
Okay, there's one caveat. If the staff is 75% or more of color, or unless you're in Atlanta, you can eat at Waffle House. If the staff is less than 75% people of color, stay your ass out of Waffle House.
The one here isn't.
we're not gonna talk about it anyway. All right, man. We'll check y'all next week. Peace.